Hey guys, Lefko here, and thank you for downloading the first episode of the Retro Review Revolution podcast. Now, some of you guys might be asking, why are you doing a podcast? The site is a really small community site. There's plenty of other retro gaming podcasts out there right now, so why are you doing a podcast at this point? And my answer is pretty simple. I'm doing a podcast right now, just one, to entertain some people, and two, to explore some areas that some of the podcasts maybe aren't doing right now. Big favorite podcast of mine right now, as far as the retro gaming thing goes, is Retro Gaming Roundup, and they are a spectacular retro podcast, and they cover most areas of retro gaming. However, in my case at least, I prefer to focus on the 8 and 16-bit eras, maybe a little bit of the 32-bit era. And they usually hit hard the Atari generation, the arcades, and whatnot, and I enjoy listening to it all the time. And yeah, they do touch on the NES, the SNES, the Genesis quite often. But I just wanted something to make that my focal area. That way, I can enjoy getting out there and discussing it. However, I also want to recommend, this is a supplement almost to a Retro Gaming Roundups podcast. I highly recommend you go over there and check it out, especially if you like what you hear on this. Now, as far as what you're going to hear on this, we're going to do things a little differently. Cynical Enigma, who is a prolific poster over on RetroReviewRevolution.com, has a special episode of The Gamer's Voice that's going to be on this episode. I'm going to be covering an editorial on why retro, which is going to be an interesting thing over something that people ask me a lot. Why do you collect retro games? Why do you play the quote-unquote old crap whenever you can buy an Xbox 360 and play the new Halo game or whatever? And I also got a couple of small other things planned with Pirate. I'm hoping to have a sit-down table discussion with him. And we may also be getting something from NES Johnny, which may or may not be on this episode as of this recording. So I hope you all can kick back, relax, and enjoy this podcast and all the info and content that we're going to have. I'm going to try to also intersperse some music in here as well. So, interspersed in here maybe about 5 minutes of maybe some original video game music from the 8 or 16-bit era, or maybe some remixes from the 8 or 16-bit era, just to supplement the podcast and whatnot. So, thanks for downloading once again. I really hope you all enjoy what we got coming. Right now, I plan on this being either a quarterly or a 3 times a year podcast. Maybe more or less often, depending on the schedules of everyone who's putting into it. And one other thing before I kick out this introduction. Retro Review Revolution, if you're new to us, it's an open community. If you have something that you'd like to get out on the podcast, submit it. We'll do our best to put it on. If you've got some cool videos that you're wanting to bring up, submit it. We'll do our best to put it on the website. If you want to write an article, submit it. I'll do my best to get it on the website for you. One big thing I really like about Retro Review Revolution and the way I set it up, I wanted to do an open community to where everyone who wants to participate is more than welcome to. We're not locked down to only, a few people submitting articles and whatnot. So feel free to come on over to RetroReviewRevolution.com, make an account, sound off in our forums, and if you want to contribute, feel free to, however you want. Through writing, through podcasting, through cutting videos, whatever your forte is. You're more than welcome to come join us. With that said, let's kick off the podcasts with The Gamer's Voice, Volume 10.
Master 203, Cynical Enigma, a Cinetube Enigma production. This time it's Altered Beast for the Sega Genesis. Oh yeah, we're not over. There's more on the way. Rise from the dead!
Hey guys, what's up? This is Cynical Enigma from RetroReviewRevolution.com, doing my first podcast, and very honored to be doing this for the website. Special thanks to Lethco for putting me on his website and putting my content on there as well. Hope you all have been enjoying my videos and everything. More to come, as usual. And anyway, just to get on to the topic of what I'm going to be talking about. Basically, this is the 10th episode of The Gamer's Voice, exclusively for RetroReviewRevolution.com. And on with the subject, we're going to talk about the X-Band adapter for the Super Nintendo and Sega Genesis. Basically what it is, it was an adapter for online gaming. Yes, you heard me. I don't know how many of you people actually heard of it or seen in video game magazines or actually ever played with it online back in the day. Basically you had to have the internet and everything. 56K, it blows, but that's all you had back in the day. Let's see. First of all, it was produced by Catapult Entertainment. Basically what that was a poor company with only a few staff. It really wasn't all that big and everything. When it first came out, when they wanted to advertise it, they could only advertise it basically in video game magazines like Electronic Gaming Monthly and EGM2 and stuff like that, basically. But I really wish, I would have been able to try it out when I was a kid, but my parents were stingy about it, and to be honest with you, I really don't think they would have done it anyway even if I knew about it. Let's see. By January 1996, the X-Band network playability reached practically every big area in the US and everything around the country and everything. And the games it supported, I'll go by systems here to let you guys know. For the Genesis, it supported Madden 95, Madden 96, the first 3 Mortal Kombat games, NBA Jam, NBA Live 95, NBA Live 96, NHL 95, NHL 96, Primal Rage, Super Street Fighter 2, and Weapon Lord. Now, I could imagine myself playing on Super Street Fighter 2 online. That would have been really epic to try out online and, to kick some ass online. If you also want to check out some videos of the X-Band, you can do so on YouTube. Just type in X-Band, and you'll get a series of videos up there as well with actual gameplay back from the 90s. I've searched it myself, and I've seen some videos, and it was pretty interesting, and and to see all the records that people had on there and everything. And alright, moving on to the Super Nintendo games that was compatible with it was Doom, Ken Griffey Jr. Baseball. I actually had that game when I was a kid. Kirby's Avalanche, Killer Instinct, Madden NFL 95, Madden NFL 96, Mortal Kombat 2, Mortal Kombat 3, NBA Jam Tournament Edition, NHL 95, NHL 96, Super Mario Kart, Super Street Fighter 2, Weapon Lord, and The Legend of Zelda: A Link to the Past. Now, on The Legend of Zelda: A Link to the Past, you could only do the Secret Maze game, I believe. I'm not too sure about if you could do the actual game online. I doubt it. But, that would have been cool, playing with other people in the Zelda games and everything. I also would have loved to try out Killer Instinct, and I'm a as you guys may know, I'm a huge fighter fan for the for Street Fighter, Killer Instinct, Kings of Fighters, Virtual Fighter, you name it, I love it. Let's see what else. Oh yeah, Saturn, they had some Saturn games too, but that was only in Japan. The ones you could play in Japan were Daytona USA Championship Circuit Edition, Decathlete, Puyo Puyo Sun, Puzzle Bobble 3, Saturn Bomberman, Sega Rally Championship Plus, Sega Worldwide Soccer 98, Virtual Fighter Remix, Virtual On, no idea what that is, World Series Baseball, disambiguation needed, and that's it. I mean, let me know if you guys ever played this back in the day or owned it back in the day, because I'd really love to hear you guys' stories about it. You guys should know my handle on RetroReviewRevolution.com. It is Cynical Enigma. You can post. I'd rather you guys post it in the forum area. I'll start a forum up here pretty soon, and to talk about it and everything after this gets put on RetroReviewRevolution.com. Yeah. But anyway, I also like to talk about what the cartridges looked like for both systems. Basically, what it was is if you had the Game Genie for the Sega Genesis or the Super Nintendo, basically that's what the cart resembled. And personally, I think for the Sega Genesis, the Sega Channel came out in 1994, the same time this product came out with the X-Band and everything. I think they should have worked together and put that into one cartridge. That would have been awesome. You get to try out, just think of it. You could have tried out tons of games. You could also, try out tons of games and play them online. That would have been awesome. And, yeah, that would have blown my mind. Me actually playing the Sega Channel was, like a gift from God or something like that back when I was a kid. I was luckily enough to try actually have one of those when I was a kid. You can't find those anymore because when it discontinued, when the Sega Channel discontinued, you had to return the adapters. There's only a few of them left out there that you can actually get a hold of, but you'd have to go on eBay and pay about $50 to $60 for the adapter. And that's if it comes with the power adapter and the coaxial hookup and everything. But anyways, let's get on to talking more about the X-Band. The pricing plans, let's get on the topic of that. They were available, though there was two of them available at the time. One with a monthly fee of $4.95, which allowed the person to connect to the service up to 50 times a month, with each additional connection costing 15 cents. Now, this is ridiculous. Nowadays, I look back at this and I really think it's ridiculous that they actually charged every time you would hook up to the X-Band. That's dumb. It should have been unlimited usage for it for like $20 a month, like they did with the Sega Channel. The Sega Channel, you could play as many games as you wanted, unlimited amount of time, for $15 a month. Anyway, and the other service was a monthly fee of $9.95, which granted the subscriber an unlimited number of connections per month. Now, to be honest with you, I don't see why they would charge an extra $5 to get unlimited number of connections. That's stupid. They were just greedy back in the day, like they are today. I think they're even more greedy today. But that's the companies for you trying to make a buck. The modem featured a built-in storage for up to 4 users, which means basically you could have 4 different people sign in on the adapter to go on to have online gameplay. And yes, it did also count. Say like you had a brother or sister or whatever, you wanted to go online, and then she wanted to go online after your time was up and playing on the game system. That would also count as another hookup fee or another online connection fee. That's ridiculous. But nonetheless, it is pretty cool. I wish I would have been able to try it out, but I didn't. Let's see. You could check any other player's statistics along with information and updates that were not available to view on the consoles, which was pretty cool if you had internet back in the day. I didn't my family weren't able to have internet until like 1997, 1998. But it's all good. You could alright. By March 16th, 1997, people could only play within their local area code because they started going downhill. Nobody was getting interested in it. They weren't making any money off of it because it started like getting unpopular, I guess. And then on April 30th, 1997, the entire network was removed, which was really sad. They still sell these adapters on eBay for like $20 to $30. If you're lucky, you'll get one brand new for like $20 or $30 as well. I myself am going to try to get a hold of one of these. And yeah, that was pretty cool when I found this out. How I found this out is when I made a trip to go down to Cedar Rapids. I came across this magazine behind a glass case showcasing retro video games, and there was two magazines actually. One was Electronic Gaming Monthly and Electronic Gaming Monthly 2. They were both $0.25 each, and I couldn't pass that up, especially for retro gaming magazines that talked about the upcoming release of Sonic the Hedgehog 2, and yeah, I had to get them. And on the ride back to my hometown, I was reading the magazines, and that's when I came across the X-Band, and it blew my mind because I knew nothing about online gaming back in the day. I didn't have no idea if it was even possible, especially in 1994. In 1994, I was like maybe 5, I think, 4 or 5, maybe 6. But yeah. Anyways, that's all I have to say about the X-Band for right now. When I do get a hold of the actual cartridge, I will do a video on my YouTube channel, which is youtube.com/user/cynicalenigma, and you guys can watch the video there if you like. And I'm going to look up more on it and see if they made an actual server for it online. I doubt it, but it doesn't hurt to try to look up, see if they did or anything. And I want to close this out with some tips on game collecting and everything. When I started game collecting, I was looking for shelves or anything like that, or media towers, to try and put my games neatly on a shelf and everything. But I'm going to tell you this right now: do not buy bookshelves to put your video games on. For the systems, it's okay. Excuse me. For video game systems, it's okay, but not for the actual video games, because it's too big of a space for it. And not only that, it's depending on what kind of book shelving you buy or whatever. It has to be like expensive. Like, I went out and bought the like $25 ones from Walmart, and they were really cheaply made, cheap wood, everything, and it fell apart within like 2 months. And like, basically, I could put my games on there, but I wouldn't have enough room to showcase all of my games. Like, I would have to make stacks back and stacks in front to where you can't even see the games in the back. You'd always have to move the games out of the way and everything. I recommend buying media storage towers, or just making your own shelving units, like I'm going to be doing this spring. My brother's letting me use his garage to build the shelves for my games, and I can't wait to start doing that. And once I get that done with, I will give you guys a little tour of what it looks like and everything, and hopefully it turns out as I plan. And yeah, alright guys, thanks for listening to this podcast and everything. Thanks for taking the time, and again, special thanks to Lethco for including me on this podcast and including me in my content on the website. I can't thank you enough, man. Anyways, hope you enjoyed listening to my topic. Be on the lookout for The Gamer's Voice episode 11 in a week. So, alright. Peace out.
I hope everyone enjoyed that segment from The Gamer's Voice. Tell you what, man, Cynical Enigma is always entertaining to listen to. He's also always entertaining to watch as well. You can watch him over on YouTube right now. His username account is, and you start this with an S instead of a C, and I believe it is a Y instead of an I. Cynical_Enigma. Just remember the cynical is spelled with an S and a Y. Tons of entertaining videos. Well, moving the podcast right along, I want to discuss something with you that I originally discussed with a good close friend of mine who came with me to pick up my first couple of arcade machines. I had picked up a Magic Sword and a Special Criminal Investigation, two different arcade machines, earlier this year. And, of course, we went traipsing in a truck, and it, of course, snowed heavily on this day because, you know, what's a good arcade machine pickup without having to work out a little bit extra to get it? But he had posed to me an interesting question, and it's something I'd like to discuss for everyone here right now. And he asked, more or less, why retro? Why do you collect retro games? You can play all of these for free on a computer using an emulator. Heck, the arcade machines that you're picking up today, you can slap in MAME, play them for free right away, and you don't have this big clunky box that you have to use it for one dedicated game of all things. And, you know, there's some very valid points in that. If you even want to go so as far to play these games emulated with the original controllers, they now make adapters to where you can do so. So why do I collect all this stuff? And I'll tell you what, there's a lot of reasons. So I'm going to go ahead and start getting into those right now. The first one I'm going to touch on right off the top of the bat is obviously nostalgia. I played a bunch of these when I was a kid, and yeah, it is nostalgic to boot up that old NES or the old Super Nintendo and to play these games from my childhood, and even better, to beat some of these games from my childhood that I couldn't beat when I was a kid. There is nothing better than playing something like Ninja Gaiden on the NES, couldn't beat it as a kid, and then finally, at the age of 29, getting to that last end boss. It's like, finally, the journey is complete. And another one is almost like achieving that childhood dream that you had early on. I mean, as kids, I'm sure back in the NES day, we all dreamed of having tons of cartridges. Just having a bookshelf full of video games where you could go in and select a random game whenever and go play it. And for a lot of us now who collect retro games, this dream's now achievable because you can go out to yard sales, pawn shops, flea markets, and pick up these games, in many cases, for 50 cents to $1. And in addition to that, there are some of these games that do get very expensive because of, they're rare or they have collector's value, or in some cases like Earthbound, they're not really rare, but it's such a popular game that the value of it just skyrockets. And there's always that, moment of, finding that hidden diamond in the rough whenever you pick up that rare game that, someone's selling for $1 or $2 that usually goes for a lot more. I personally had this lucky find. It's been like a year or two ago. I actually managed to find a copy of Action 52 for $3 at a Goodwill. This is a game that right now on eBay can go, $150, $200. So there's always that cool diamond in the rough thing. And another reason is, this may sound weird, but it's true. They don't make them like they used to. What I mean by that is, take a game like Mega Man. Take a modern version even, like Mega Man 9, which is an excellent iteration of Mega Man that was recently released for the PS3, 360, and Wii. It is a very rare example of a quality 2D style game made in this day and age. Back in the heyday of the NES, we had awesome 2D games. Ninja Gaiden. In my opinion, RoboCop, which a lot of people pan left and right, was an excellent home version of RoboCop. The first one, not the second two. I won't get too involved in it, but I just find it really cool that in the RoboCop game, they made him not jump, which makes sense because he's this big cyborg made out of steel. And he was slow and clunky, just like you expect a big steel robot should be. I felt it was faithful to the movie series. Adventure games such as Legend of Zelda, mixtures like Star Trek 21st Anniversary, even some of the movie ports that often get panned for being so absolutely horrible. There's even good versions of those, such as Gremlins 2. I mean, there's something very nostalgic about going back and playing something like Gremlins 2, remembering the movie and then tie-in with the game. Sitting there with an old adventure game such as Deja Vu, Uninvited, Shadowgate, going through the old style of text-based adventures that came out originally for the Mac and was ported over to the NES. There's just a great feel to some of these games that you don't see anymore. You can even take it all the way to the Super Mario Bros. Series. Go back and play Super Mario Bros. 3. Look at how huge the game world feels whenever you play Super Mario Bros. 3. And then go play something like Super Mario 3D Land on the 3DS. Play new Super Mario Bros. On the Wii or the original DS version. The newer ones, while they're quality games, they don't have that huge feel of exploration that you had in Mario 3, and it's something that I feel has been lacking. Just something that you don't see anymore. Once again, going back to the they don't make them like they used to argument, I'm a big fan of role-playing games. I know a lot of people aren't a fan of the console role-playing games, especially in the 8 and 16-bit eras, due to the whole random encounter thing, due to the whole, not much of a story thing in some cases. Don't ask me why. I love this old style gameplay to just have a character or a party start out where, the smallest of enemies will just tear the heck out of you. And slowly, throughout many hours, building this person or group of people up to where they can slaughter anything that comes through their path. There's just something fun about that stands up. Another thing is game difficulty. In my opinion, in this day and age, you don't get as much money out of a game as you did back then. Here's a good example. I went out, I bought Halo Reach. Yes, I do play the Halo games. And I beat it in 2 days. That's just insanely fast to beat a $60 game, a $60 investment. And, did I explore totally everything? No. But then I go back to something like Super Mario Bros. 3, whereas, I'm familiar with the game today, I can run through it fairly quickly. Back when I first bought it, it took me a month to beat it. I know some people that ran through it quite a bit faster, but we can, move on to some of the more difficult games of the NES library. Let's take Battletoads, for instance. Not very many people can go ahead and run through this game in a few hours, even today. It takes quite a bit of skill and sometimes quite a bit of luck as well. Another one that I always found was really hard was Uninvited. And I thought this game was a really fun game from the overhead isometric mode. And then you had the almost 3D-like battles with your sorcerer fighting off against like goblins and ogres and whatnot. And it was a really fun game, had excellent combat mechanics, but once again, very difficult, something it's not really found today. But getting off of that tangent, then, he had mentioned, my friend at least, he had mentioned, well, you have arcade controls that plug in through USB. You have an X-Arcade. Why would you even mess with the machine? You can get the exact same experience from, your controller and a computer emulating it over MAME. And I almost have to argue with that. I mean, yeah, you can, kick back with MAME. You can even build a MAME machine, something that, looks and feels almost identical to an arcade cabinet. But there's still something really special about, acquiring an arcade machine that's been out in the field, that, God knows how many people have pumped quarters into this game playing it. And, owning a piece of history almost, right there in your very own living room or game room or what have you. It's just a great feel. And another thing is learning the maintenance on these games. Learning, how the dip switches operate to change settings in the game. Learning how to make your arcade machine play different games by switching out the arcade boards, be it whether you have a, basic JAMA-style game, or maybe you've got a Neo Geo which takes the cartridges, or the Play Choice 10. But being able to switch them out and play something a little different is always a great plus, especially in this day and age where you can actually purchase multi-boards which have multiple games in one board to give you that arcade experience with multiple games for fairly cheap. So that's more or less my explanation as far as why retro. It's a combination of nostalgia. It's a combination of they don't make them like they used to. And it's a combination of a childhood dream and more or less just having fun. And before I go, you can even combine elements of retro and modern gaming to almost create something new. One good example, of course, was Mega Man 9 from earlier. Another area is something like game reproductions. For Christmas this year, a friend from NintendoAge.com had sent me a copy of Tecmo Super Bowl. And you may think, well, Tecmo Super Bowl, that's a common NES game. Most people have that if they're into collecting NES games. It's cheap and plentiful. What he actually sent me, though, was a copy of Tecmo Super Bowl that has been modified to where it has the 2011 football roster on it instead of the original football roster in the game. And it's a really nice looking cart. It's been painted green. It's got a foil logo on it. Really slick production value. and it's a really great gift. And these things are all over the place. You can get just basic things like what I got. That's just an updated roster. You can get translations from Japanese games, such as Sweet Home, Earthbound, being the best two on the top of my head from the role-playing department. Games that we never got to enjoy as kids that still have the retro feel that we can kick back with and enjoy now. But that's going to do it for this segment. I hope you all have been, moderately entertained about why I personally go after that, retro feel, the retro collection, and the retro gaming. So now I want to hear your reasons. So if you guys would like, please come over to RetroReviewRevolution.com and sound off in the forums. Tell me why you collect retro games or why you play retro games. And do you actually collect retro games? Do you stick to the emulators? Do you do both? I actually do both. I own a GP2X Wiz for portable emulation. Of course, there's a laptop. I have a Pandora that I'm hoping to eventually pick up, which is like this beast of a handheld that can emulate tons of stuff. Some people use hacked PlayStation portables to do this on. So, like I said, come on over to the website and sound off in our forums on why you do retro gaming. Till then, we will see you next time.
Hello everyone, this is NES Johnny. Thank you for listening. I feel so excited and honored to be part of Retro Review Revolution's first podcast. I think that's really cool. I've been very excited to watch the site grow, and I think this is a great step for us. And I hope everyone that wanted to be a part of this podcast was able to, and if not, we're going to be doing this multiple times a year, so I hope you think of something to submit for the next one. Well, anyhow, I want to talk about a couple of things, one of which is, of course, going to be games. But before I even get to games, I want to talk about Cynical Enigma's criticisms for resellers. Now, I don't want anyone mistaken that I have anything against Cynical Enigma personally, because I think he's a great guy, and I really even respect those criticisms that he had. Even though I don't agree with them, I can respect that and I understand his perspective, but I don't hear a lot of people defending resellers, so I want to talk about that a little bit. Now, first, I trade in equity markets, or the stock market, so I have a little insight into buying and selling. I am primarily an analyst, and I gauge market perception and psychology and how that will influence the future movement of a particular equity or even the market itself. The first thing that comes to mind when I think of reselling is arbitraging. Now, Investopedia defines arbitrage as the simultaneous purchase and sale of an asset in order to profit from a difference in the price. It is a trade that profits by exploiting price differences of identical or similar financial instruments on different markets or in different forms. Arbitrage exists as a result of market inefficiencies. It provides a mechanism to ensure prices do not deviate substantially from fair value for long periods of time. Now, arbitrage is essentially a profit created from the mispricing of an asset. Now, that is to say, the oil market trades globally. Every country in the world is buying and selling oil. And I know a fellow that will buy, say, $500,000 worth of oil at one time, and he'll tie up all this money, like even in excess of $1 million, and he'll buy it for, say, $499,980 and sell it for $500,000, and he'll only make $20 on that, but that buy and that sell is filled instantly because of the inefficiencies that exist in the market, and he writes scripts so that all churns out automatically. So he's doing this several times a second, so it's like $20, $20, $20, $20, and he makes his fortune on it because the markets are so inefficient. And what this does is that closes in that gap between the highest purchasing price and the lowest purchasing price. One thing that people have said to me is, that they don't think the stock market should exist because, if people are on the market, they're just doing that just to make money. People are going to buy a stock at a high price, and they're going to buy it at a low price, and they're going to sell it at a high price. So what does it matter? And of course that matters a great deal. Trillions of dollars are passed through. And in the same way, video games are sort of like an asset class. They're and I think that reselling is sort of a form of arbitraging. It's not a simultaneous buying and a selling, but if you buy it at a flea market and then you sell it on eBay or something, I hope you don't sell on eBay, by the way, and if you sell it on eBay the next day for a much higher price, then that is a very good example of buying and selling because the two markets are mismatched, and that is a misprice. Now, if you consider supply and demand, I'm assuming everyone listening has some sort of introduction into economics, and you remember a supply and demand graph. So if we take ice cream cones for an example, if the price is free, everyone wants one, and the demand is infinite. You may even take a couple ice cream cones, even if you don't want an ice cream. On the other hand, if they're extremely expensive, only the rich people buy them. So it's hard to illustrate this without being able to show you an actual chart, but I hope you're familiar enough with this that it's sparking your memory. So moving to video games, if they're free, everyone would take one. Even someone that doesn't even have a Nintendo would think, oh, this will be good for a coaster. Who cares? And, when they're expensive, only rich people get them. And we have a good example of that, which is the Nintendo World Championship cartridge. They're selling for tens of thousands of dollars, and only the really wealthy toy collectors and the the collectors with the big money get those. So some are very low cost and others are expensive, which is because they aren't being made anymore. And with ice cream cones, we can imagine infinite free ice cream. If all the world's ice cream makers sold ice cream at a loss, we could have a reality like that. But this isn't even theoretically possible with vintage video games because the supply is static. Because some of them are expensive and others are cheap, there's no producer affecting the supply. So we can deduce that the price is set by the buyer. There's no production, only consumption. Nintendo World Championships cart would only become worth less if people paid less for a copy. But there's no seller out there or supplier that would or can increase the supply line and drive down the price. So, it's true on a small scale, like the Nintendo World Championship, and it's true on a large scale, like with the ice cream. And it's easy to get annoyed at the rising prices of games. For me, that's really annoying with Super Nintendo, because I'd like to have more Super Nintendo games. But the sellers have no say in the supply of what the buyers are willing to pay, or what they're willing to play. They can only price games below the market value. And I actually do that sometimes. If I get a really good haul from a flea market or a thrift shop or something, I'll take one of the copies of the games, something good that goes for too much money, like Mario All-Stars. I'll put it on an auction with a buy it now for like a couple dollars, and that way, someone else gets a share in my success of like finding something cool for real cheap. But when I do that, I put that price there. It has no effect on the market value. That doesn't drive the price of what people are willing to pay and what other people can sell it for. So that's completely arbitrary. A reseller can sell for less than they do, but if they do that, that doesn't change anything. I mean, they'd have to all get together and all decide that they're going to all charge less for everything, and that just doesn't work. I mean, how are you going to get that many people to decide they don't want as much money? But really, all I'm saying is that there's a lot of hate towards resellers. I don't think they deserve it. Many of them put a huge time and effort into scouring flea markets, thrift shops, online sites, and they're looking for hidden gems. And there's a huge opportunity cost to that, which I didn't even begin to cover opportunity cost. So like I said, I know many people there live where there's no opportunity to go to a flea market or, go to a thrift shop and get something cheap. So they should, be happier, I think, that there's people out there willing to do that, able to do that, and now that there's a medium to meet that buyer and that seller together. This isn't even possible without the internet. 20 years ago, all these games would have been ending up in a landfill because there's no way to get those games to the people that want them. People just find them in their closet, think, oh, this is garbage, and then they throw it away. And I think that would be a bigger shame than people trying to make as much of a profit off their old games as they can. And so I can't be too mad at the resellers because I do a little reselling myself, but I think all of the serious collectors do. But anyhow, that's just my defense of that, of the reselling. So now that that's over, I'd be, remiss if I didn't talk about games a little bit. And I did a write-up recently about the rise of indie games, and I think I found one that's actually better than anything I covered, and that's called Hard Reset. Now, I am a huge first-person shooter nerd. I've played them all, and I love them all. Well, I don't love them all. But this one is just intense and fun and exciting, and this is the best first-person shooter or indie game I have played in a very, very long time. It's got this great cyberpunk look to it. It's made in the vein of Doom and Quake. It's just like really intense, really fast-paced, and you got these awesome weapons that you're just like blowing everything up with. You can use a lot of elements in your environment to really help you destroy everything, and they even the odds out a little bit because all these guys will be coming at you from every direction, and you can start shooting up these things that will explode and electrocute them, and it's just the coolest thing. The animations look really sweet, and just the whole way they set it up with all these different enemies and all your different weapons and all the different environment artifacts that you can use. It's just very strategic, and I think that's really cool. So yeah, the other one I wanted to talk about was Fear 2. I have not played a major studio release, I think, ever in my life that I've liked so much. This one is really cool, really fun. I picked it up at the Steam sale for Christmas recently, and I can't believe how fun it is. It's just got really, really great look to it. The action is really nice. And, but even with that, it's kind of just a first-person shooter. But the storyline is fantastic. The storyline kind of covers the military doing experiments trying to create psychic soldiers, which they actually did in the 60s and 70s. So this is sort of based in reality and history. And you're tracing this black op kind of stuff, pun intended. And you're trying to piece together what happened and what you can do to stop it. And the story just grips you the whole way. This is one of those stories and one of those games I was thinking about when I wasn't playing it. Usually games are what I do at the end of the day to unwind and relax, but this one really gripped me. Like, even when I was working and hanging out with people, in the back of my mind I was thinking, wow, I can't wait to play this again. That I really want to see what happens next. And it's not often you find a story or a game that can really do that to you. So I thoroughly, thoroughly recommend Fear 2. And the other one I recommend is Hard Reset. And one more thing before I close out is I want you to make sure you fight the Stop Online Piracy Act, SOPA, and PIPA is sort of the sister act to that. They are bills that are being pushed through the U.S. legislation to shut down sites that link to other sources. So this is going to cripple sites like YouTube, sites, even Google is at risk that could shut down Retro Review Revolution. And this will really cripple the gaming community. I mean, all those Let's Plays, all those walkthrough videos, all those video reviews. After this passes, it's going to be a felony to not only put up copyrighted video like that, but it's going to be a felony to link to a video like that. So this is just going to completely obliterate the game collecting community, and I think this is something that is very, very well worth contacting your representatives about and let them know that, hey, this isn't cool. We elect you. We pay your bills. Don't let this happen to us. All right. So anyway, on a happier note, thank you for listening to this, and I can't wait to hear the whole thing myself. And keep playing those good games. Talk to you soon.
All right, everyone. I'd like to thank you for downloading this podcast and for tuning in for Retro Review Revolution's inaugural podcast. Just like to say a few things in closing. One, of course, thank you to everyone who's been supporting the site over the past few months that we've been up now. We've had a huge influx of new people coming in. I think the forums are up to 36 members, which is really huge. I had no idea that would grow as fast as it is. On a sad note, before I recorded the intro to this podcast, I had realized that PlayTheNES.com is actually preparing for a shutdown. Now, why this is important to me is because Play the NES is the first place that I had started hanging out at when I started getting into collecting the old games and really starting to get into replaying the older video games, or the whole retro movement thing now. And I've always considered it my home forum. I also post on Nintendo Age. I also post on Game Gavel forums, but I really considered Play the NES to be my home, even after starting up my own webpage. And I am sad to see it go, but as I said, a lot of the guys over at Play the NES have joined up at Retro Review Revolution to keep our little family alive, and I just want to thank everyone who's come to sign up and for allowing me to host the forums to keep us together. It's a huge honor, and I greatly appreciate that. I hope you all really enjoyed the podcast. I know that we went a little heavy metal crazy on a lot of the remix music that we did. If you guys are cool with that, great. If not, tell me, and I'll try to get more of a mix of stuff in there. It was kind of an inadvertent thing, but I'm a big metalhead myself, so that's what ended up going in. But I will try to kind of broaden my horizons a little bit if you guys think that it's a little too much on the heavy metal stuff. On top of all that, just stay tuned, guys, because we've got a lot more stuff coming from Pirate, Cynical Enigma, NES Johnny, myself. We've also got a new feature called Project Nintendo, where we host stereo remixes of some NES and Game Boy games, which is really cool to download and check out. Those are being done by the Wes. It's really about it for now. I really hope you enjoyed everything. I'm tentatively aiming for an April release of Episode 2, so come to RetroReviewRevolution.com, give me your feedback, give me your ideas, and remember that this is an open platform for you guys. If you want to record a podcast, all you got to do is plug that mic in your computer, record it, email it to me at lethco@gmail.com. That is LEATHCO@gmail.com. Sound off in the forums and have your own little place in this podcast. I really hope that you guys all sign up, and don't forget to contribute. This place is here for our community. So be sure to contribute, sound off, be heard. With that, we will see you next time. Thanks for listening.